ordinary, commonplace world I so belittled, the source for her art, the material for her writing, using its language, its sounds and smells and sights, with a veracity, a freshness and immediacy that no other writer I had read had. The message, like an electric current. Yes, this is our world, our experience. It can be our writing, too. Many years, much experience later, we once had an unexpected encounter in the airport at Frankfurt. She was on her way from New York to India, and I was on my way from India to New York. Alarmed at my lack of proper clothing, she insisted on giving me her duffel coat that she would not need in India, but I would in New York. So we made our separate ways, across the hemispheres, safely. In the years that followed, we shared so much, or looked at differently so little. Our lives were small, restricted. The Jhabvalas moved to the beautiful house designed by Jab on Flagstaff Road, and there were now 3 daughters and 2 enormous German Shepherd dogs. I too married and had children, and would take them over for tea, which they would greatly look forward to because Ruth always had her cook, Abdul, bake a cake for them, and Jab would come back from his office to entertain them with his repertoire of magic tricks. In the summers, we met in the hill station of Kasoli, where the Jhabvalas booked rooms at the Alatia Hotel every year, while I stayed in a rented cottage nearby. Our children would run wild in the pine woods on the hillsides, while Ruth and I went for our more sedate walks, and occasionally met with Khushwant Singh, the Sikh historian and novelist who also had a home there. In all these orderly, regulated, uneventful years, Ruth wrote prolifically, novels and short stories that seemed to draw upon a bottomless well of material. She always had such an air of existing in a separate world, in isolation and perfect stillness. So where did all this come from? How did she come to know the men and women who peopled her books? We need to listen to her. In her 1979 Neil Gunn Fellowship lecture, she said that as a Jewish refugee from Europe, the loss of her inheritance made her a cuckoo forever insinuating myself into others' nests, a chameleon hiding myself in false or borrowed colors. Also that you take over other people's backgrounds and characters. Keats called it negative capability. It was a contrast to what E.M. Forster and Paul Scott had done in their writing about India as outsiders and visitors, if fascinated observers. Carol Phillips has remarked that she was post-colonial before the term had been invented. Ruth's own explanation was typically understated and wry. Once a refugee, always a refugee, which is why John Updike called her an initiated outsider. Once, when she had V.S. Naipaul to tea and passed him a plate of cakes, he pointed at it with a trembling finger and cried, "There's a fly on it!" "Oh," she said, "just take off your glasses, I always do." But not when she was writing, when her vision was laser-sharp. Nothing was glossed or obscured. This would explain stories such as The Widow, whose central character longs for a life other than that of marriage to an old man, mean and vindictive, and after his death lusts after her tenant's young son, pathetically pursuing him with promises of the fine clothes his mother can't buy him, and even the motor scooter he yearns for, only to be spurned, and having returned to her watching and waiting circle of relatives, a cast of sly and avaricious dependents. The voice, the point of view, is so perfectly captured, one would not add or alter a single word for greater effect. Expiation, a story so wrenching it is almost unbearable, is about the owner of a cloth shop in a small town and the unconditional love he has for his younger brother, a wastrel who falls in with a criminal and commits a murder for which both are hanged, then brings himself, in a supreme act of love